Welcome to episode 6 of the IDK podcast. We're going to be talking about conspiracy theories with my friend Tatum. I'm going to give you a moment to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about, what you're into, what you do, how we decided to pick conspiracy theories of all things to talk about. And I do have a feeling that I probably will want to have you back on for other things, because whenever Tatum and I start talking, we talk about 1,000 different things in a million different directions, and it's always really good. So, and feel free to, at the end, I'm going to have you plug anything you want to plug. So, just shoot from the hip, I guess.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me on. I'm excited about it. I always love talking to you, and B, it's always fun to have an opportunity to be able to reach a larger audience. And, as you were saying earlier, it's quantum. You never know.
Yeah.
Definitely. As one of my favorite quotes is by a guy named B.J. Palmer, and he was actually the developer of chiropractic. And he says, "You never know how far-reaching something you may think, say, or do today can touch the lives of millions tomorrow," or something along those lines.
Yeah, that's good.
And right, I've always loved that. So yeah, a little bit about me. Basically, I do personal growth coaching, typically for people that are HSP empaths, teaching them how to create personal boundaries to protect their energetic fields, and then how to basically provide a support system and hold space for them as they're kind of leveling up their life. So I do that. And then also I'm in the process of completing a bunch of projects. So eventually I'll probably have my own podcast, and I'm working on a large workbook series right now, because I realize that there's a lot of people that can't afford a coach, or just don't want somebody all up in their business. They want to do it themselves. And I did a lot of work myself because I was super broke for a long time and I couldn't afford to hire anybody. And so basically the workbooks that I'm creating are my thought process of how I coach myself, and then how I use that on my clients, so to help you be able to dig deeper. So that's what I'm working on right now. As far as more of who I am, like I'm clairsentient, I'm clairaudient, I'm very, which basically means that, I'm very sensitive to energies. I can feel things, I can hear things. A couple times I've seen things.
And you smell?
I smells only in regard to people that I know. Right. So if I can smell like my grandma's perfume sometimes, stuff like that. So so that kind of stuff. Yes. I really haven't explored that one, honestly. So I think
that's the last one that people really want to explore,
Yeah, I've spent more time just focusing on how to protect my energetic sphere, and a little bit dabbling into telepathy because I find it intriguing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd love to learn how to levitate. That'd be dope, So I read about it, a lot of this stuff, to try to figure out ways to do it. And sometimes, the lever moves a little bit further towards the experiences of things. And, but yeah, so that's kind of me in a nutshell. There's probably things I forgot, but yeah.
So I figured out our first bullet point.
Oh, all right. Bullet points are happening.
All right. So telepathy, right? So this is a theory that I've had for a long time. I've talked to many, many people about it. I probably have even talked to you about it. Who knows? But my thought was that, as a kid, for example, in 3rd grade, I would sit there bored in class and I'd be staring at my pencil and I'm like, just make it wobble. Just make it wobble. Like I'm trying to move stuff, or I would try to hear what was coming out of the teacher's mouth, maybe a half a second before I heard it, if that makes sense. And so I felt like I could hear what she was going to say before she would say it.
I can do that.
But I can do it now. As a kid, I just was like, I didn't know if I was just really imaginative or crazy or whatever. I can do that now, though. And so, I would try to do that, or I would try to see if I could maybe get someone to say something, just throw a word in there as they're talking. Do you know what I mean? just to see if I could, because I don't know.
I
It's
want
just
to try
something I
that
did.
now.
Yeah, it's something that I did, and we've practiced it. I mean, I have a deck of cards that I just got. Uh, they're called Zener cards,
Oh,
and
that's
um,
fun.
as you can imagine, you're supposed to try to guess what the symbol is on the other side. And so I've been,
Flashcards for spiritual people.
yeah, no, it's what I saw these and I was like, I've been looking for these forever, and then here they are. And so I was doing that with my wife, and I got like 6 in a row, dead on, one after another. And I said, "Holy crap, I can't believe I got 6 straight." And she goes, "I've been thinking the word, like, this is what this is to you, and you've been nailing them." And I was like, "That's cool." So it's something I actually want to do later, because I do stream on Twitch a little bit every once in a while and stuff like that. But I wouldn't mind like streaming this game and letting people participate and see if they can guess what it's going to be and test their intuition.
Oh,
Um,
that's fun. I like that.
yeah, just for fun. But so anyways, ever since I've been very little, had like a fascination with telepathy, and I thought to myself one day, what if when people were talking about, oh, we don't know how the pyramids were built, we don't know how this happened, we don't know how did they do this without these modern day things. And I always felt
Aliens.
like, well, yeah, or it could be alien, sure, alien technology, right? But I thought maybe back then
Mhm.
people could use telepathy in various different things that we all talk about how cool it would be to develop, right?
Yeah.
And maybe it was just as common as us picking up stuff, like, oh, I can pick up this object with my hand. Well, people could do it with their mind.
Yeah.
And because everything goes in cycles, like over time, it's like, oh my god, picking this up with my mind is so exhausting. Why don't I just use my hand? Like, why am I spending all this time using my brain, right?
Yeah.
And so then I wonder if, like, over time, if sort of those things evolved out, and or people obviously were like, it's witchery. Um, and here we are, where now everything is very 3D and physical, but there's so much drive, and people are developing things to circle back around in that cycle. And so I don't know. And so I just wondered if a lot of ancient civilizations actually had access to more spiritual gifts than what we think, and maybe that explains some of the things that we can't explain. Like, we're not in the same wavelength as they were quite yet to be able to fully understand what they did, but we're kind of coming back around to it. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's exactly what happened. I think that, back in the day in the ancient civilizations, I mean, just look at like Atlantis and stuff like that,
Mhm.
I mean, they were already 5D and higher, we've been trapped in 3D and suppressed for God knows how long now. And now we're just now transitioning. So it's like right now there's so many timelines that are interlapping. That's why we feel so much push and pull in the energy fields right now, and how we can go from being like super energetic 1 minute to being like, I am down for the count. Don't touch me. Don't talk to me. Hide me in a corner.
Right.
Like, it's, everyone used to have all these skills. And just like you said, it was totally normal. Like, yeah, why would I schlep a bunch of stuff if I can literally just be like, and poof, there it is,
Right.
like, of course, like, why why wouldn't you do that, unless
Mhm.
someone's like really trying to work out and they don't want to use their brain muscle to try to make it work. Like, I don't, I mean, ever since like my third eye opened and I got like extra skills,
Right.
hell yeah, I use my extra skills all the time because it's
Mhm.
so much easier,
Right.
like, I'm so much more perceptive now, like I trust my intuition, so much more that it's like I don't even waste my time on other stuff because that's
Yeah.
exactly what it is. It's a waste of time and energy that's unnecessary. Like, I already know. I don't need the proof that will satisfy the skeptics to tell me what I know that I know that I know.
Right. I So around the time when I really started to trust my intuition, like truly wholeheartedly, trust it. I always had good intuition and good feelings, and I was kind of like, listen, stuff just comes true. Like, I feel it, I see it, it comes true, but I still
Yeah.
didn't necessarily trust it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of
Um,
course. I mean, we're still playing humans
I
right now. So.
Part of the reason why I ended up meeting Mikkel is because she was going through her distance Reiki training, and I broke up with a girl based off of a dream that I had, like a premonition. And she was so pissed off. She was like, "You're dumping me over a dream about something that you think is going to happen that hasn't happened." And I'm like, "Yep." And she's like, "That makes no sense. You're fucking crazy." And I was like, "Listen, I saw it very, very clear." And, so then what I saw was that she met some guy who was missing a part of his hand and that she was going to essentially leave me for him. And it was so like, I just had never had a dream that felt that way before. Not as strong as that one did.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's gonna happen. And so, we kept in touch or whatever. And sure enough, she went to a bar and there was a guy that played piano and he was missing some of his digits. And he's an extremely good piano player, extremely good. And she ended up actually dating him and marrying him, having a kid, and now they're divorced or whatever. But um the girl that I'm talking about was somebody who I met back in the AOL days, man. Like
Old
back in the
school.
dial, yeah. Like I'm not kidding either. We're talking like 7th, 8th grade, like dial up, you know. Had a huge crush on her and AOL chat rooms and stuff, right? And years later, we just reconnected or whatever off the net and started talking and but anyway, so when I broke it off, I was really upset because I had feelings for her for a very long time before that happened.
Yeah.
And Mikkel was like, "Can I do distance Reiki on you to like help heal your heart because I know you're hurting?" And that's kind of what brought us into being friends in a way. We had mutual friendships and stuff from people, and there's somebody, a mutual friend of ours, that introduced us, but we didn't really become friends until that experience. And when she did Reiki, distance Reiki, I remember afterwards telling her, like, I felt like I could feel where her hands were when she was doing Reiki. Like, I mean, they felt physically next to me. And it tripped me out so much that it made me then go and learn Reiki as well. And that's some of what helped open me up, though, was going down that path, right? Because I got attuned, and when I got attuned, it was like, so
You're like, what?
yeah, no, it was crazy. I had like when I got attuned, I had this moment where I felt like I was literally connected to everything on the planet all at once, and it felt like an hour, but it was only a few seconds. And then when I came out of it, I was like instantly. Well, I was moved to tears, first of all, but second of all, I was almost like angry. Like, I want to feel that all the time. Why can't I feel that all the time? And I have never felt it since either. But that also helped expand my consciousness of how I'm connected to everything, right? So
Yeah.
it's interesting. It's funny to go back and look at all the little breadcrumbs that have like led up to this moment, right? So anyways,
Yeah.
I went off on a major tangent there.
That's cool. I like tangents.
But yeah, I mean, I can't remember how we ended up down that path in the first place. Oh, the intuition thing. So yeah, I mean, from that point forward, right? I was like, if I feel this physical sensation in my body, I know that my intuition's like, I hit my mic, is like, pay attention, right? And
Yeah,
so
that was your taste of 5D right there.
yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, and well, that's the thing though, is like when I got that, I'm like, it kind of makes you feel a little bit like an addict, right? You're like, give me more of that shit.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway.
But I mean that just makes me think of people that are like, addicted to drugs, is like they want, because there's a lot of drugs, I'm sure, where you can get a little bit of like a hit of that, of what
Yeah.
that could feel like, and then that's why
Sure.
you're chasing the dragon, as they say, because
Right.
once you see that there's a place that you can be where there's no stress and no worries and everything comes to you and all there is love, why the fuck would you want to go back?
Yeah. Well, you just realize that the stuff that you're worried about and the things that are going on in the world are just such a small,
Yeah.
minuscule thing. And when you're here and when you're very like human and you're in the element of things and you're tied up in that drama and all the noise that's going on, it feels like that's your world.
Of course.
But
Yeah.
but you realize when you feel that connection, you realize that it's literally like a drop in a lake of water. Like it's nothing. It's nothing.
Mhm.
But here we are. That drop is our world, so it is what it is,
Yeah.
and we're here to do what we're here to do. But
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think that everybody, when they kind of first start down the spiritual path, like they're really, trying to explore that piece of it as much as
yeah,
possible. Of like, oh, I had this taste of this feeling and I almost can't describe it. It's like just such a sensational, like delicious feeling.
yeah,
And then you're trying to like try to fit how that fits in your like earth world mind. And it's like, I mean, I had to really remind myself, like, look, I came to earth for a reason. There's a reason why I'm here. I
right,
cannot just try to live my whole world in this timeline that, I mean, like, there's a reason why I came here and I have to play out this path first,
right,
and but not to say you can't have some of that, but now we're finally here, I think, in this timeline where we are lining up with 5D, and that's going to become the new normal.
right.
But of course, first there's the fall before the rise.
hmm So the next topic, right? So the next topic, uh,
I
do
like how
you?
I find it out by reading the bottom
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
screen.
right. Uh,
I love it.
do you think? Because you said something. You said I came down to this earth. When you say I came down to this earth, I know what you mean, right? But to some
Mm.
people, it's like, what do you mean come down? Are you an alien? Like, what's going on? And it's funny because this is one of those weird out there opinions and stuff. It's not going to be weird to you. I already know, but but
Can't wait.
I believe in reincarnation, obviously, and I believe that we've all lived past lives in different countries, in different bodies, in different races, whatever, genders, doesn't matter. I also kind of believe, maybe not everyone, maybe everyone, I don't know, but I also kind of believe that it's possible to live other lives in other civilizations and other species, as in aliens, which is weird as shit to a lot of people. But you hear all the talk about star seeds and how the planet was seeded by aliens and all those kind of things, and it's like, okay, maybe it was, right? But maybe that's misunderstood a little bit. And if we're multi-dimensional quantum beings, is it possible that we exist in those sort of timelines, and maybe even in different, you know uh like, is it possible that you're here in 3D, but in 7D you're so and so, the Syrian Star Lord, on some planet at the same time? I don't know. It sounds crazy, but it's cool and it's sci-fi and I love it. So, and what do you think though? Do you think aliens exist? Do you think we will see any in our lifetime? Like, do you
I
think
think,
they're going to come out? Or
yeah,
are
I
we
think
going
you've.
to allow them to come out, I should say?
I think that probably most people have already met one. They just didn't realize it. So
Didn't realize
yes,
it. Yeah.
yeah, yes, I believe they're real. I believe that we live in a multiverse where an infinite number of timelines are running consistently, and
Yep.
each timeline could be, anything you could possibly imagine, no matter, So, I mean, anytime I experience deja vu, I feel like I'm just running into another one of myself, and it's like a confirmation to me that I'm on my highest timeline.
Yeah.
So that's how I've always intuitively like perceived that. I mean, I've seen things that don't make sense otherwise. I mean, like I met a lady in Sedona, like when I got my third eye blasted open, this lady that I met, she was a crystal healer. I wasn't even there for a session. My friend was. I just happened to be with them and
hmm
ended up having this crazy experience there. And anyways, long story short, she had these like crazy bracelets. It doesn't make any sense, but she had these big, like clunky, you'd think it'd be like that, but no, they were like these big metal looking silver chunky bracelets with these crazy symbols on the side.
Uh-huh.
And at that point I was already sensitive to energies, like I could do some energy healing work and stuff, but it was nothing like where I'm at now.
Right.
And she put one of them in my hand and I like literally hot potatoed it back to her because it had like just think of like the deepest energy healing experience you've ever had, and like
Right.
how usually you get off the table an hour whatever later and you're just like, oh, that was lovely, but
Yeah.
like you're buzzing, like in the half a second that that bracelet was on my hand, it was the deepest energy clearing that I'd ever had. And it was so powerful that I almost fell over.
Wow.
Yeah. And she, and I'm like, where the fuck did you get these? What is this? Tell me, what is this?
Yeah, right.
And she was like, oh yeah. She's like, well, I found it at a yard sale. She's like, but that's just, happenstance of how things come to you, She's
Yeah,
like,
right.
but she sent the bracelets away for testing to labs, and whatever they were made out of was not from Earth.
Interesting. Maybe like
Yeah.
asteroids, you think?
I mean, it wasn't like, it was some sort of a metal, but it's not a metal from here. So it was unidentifiable.
Interesting.
And considering that I've never felt anything like it ever,
Yeah.
I was very likely to believe her. So, but
Did you buy it?
no, they're not for sale.
Oh,
I did try though.
come on.
I did try. But she was like, no way, dude. And it was this, and she didn't even have all of them. She's like, can you imagine if I had because the way that you could see the symbols, like the way they would stack up together, because each
Yeah.
bracelet was like, I don't know, maybe like an inch tall, and they're big chunky bracelets. And I mean, who knows if they were actually meant to be bracelets, but that's what they looked like.
Yeah.
And he had 3 of them, and it looked like there should have been maybe like 5 of them. So who knows, like when the other ones will appear, and then what kind of like stargates they'll open then or something. So, but that was like the beginning of me getting like my third eye blasted open. So, and she had this lady was like, she blew my mind. She had this photo album where they took these bracelets out to the Red Rocks in Sedona, and we're doing like a photo shoot with the bracelets. And I don't know why, but anyways, so all these like orbs and stuff are showing up in the photos, like surprise, surprise. A, they're in Sedona vortexes, and B, these fucking magic bracelets, right? And they're so all these orbs and stuff are showing up, and you can clearly see that like they look like little little alien spaceships. Like the orbs are like the shapes of
They're
like
the
little
shape of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, what is this? And and at this point I'm like, yeah, probably maybe there's aliens somewhere, like we can't be the only ones in the universe, and that's like pretty much like as far as my alien theories went, right? This was like, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. And she's like, no, just look at them. She's like, everybody thinks that, aliens have to be the same size as us or bigger or whatever, because all we do is watch Star Trek and yada, yada, right?
Yeah,
But
sure.
she's like, of course they could be smaller, and could fit in your hand or whatever, And it made me immediately made me think of that Men in Black with the little
guy. Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Orion or whatever on the necklace.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa. It was like such a like a mind explosion, that I was just like, oh my gosh, that's crazy, And so after that whole experience with my third eye and whatever, I was like, okay, like shit is not as it seems. And then later that night, I remember I was sitting outside, and in Sedona, like you can really see the stars. I mean, like nothing I've ever seen.
So bad.
Oh yeah. I have a love-hate relationship with Sedona because it's just so intense for me energetically. Like it's almost more than I can handle, unless I'm like literally at the Red Rocks. And then it calms down, but the frequencies are just like, like I drove down to Sedona to meet some friends like 3 weeks ago. It's like 4.5 hours from where I'm at. And on the drive back, I realized that I didn't feel like myself again until I was about an hour and a half outside of Sedona.
Yeah.
I was like, dang, those are some far-reaching vortexes. So yeah, I mean, when you look at the sky in Sedona or anywhere else where there's no light pollution around, and you see how many stars are actually up there, like
crazy.
I mean, to think that we're the only beings that are alive in I mean, like to me, I mean that's extremely egotistical, because it's like, bro, like just look. I mean, come on.
Yeah, so like one of the interesting things about some of the cryon channels, and when I went and saw him in person, which he did like 2 15-minute channels. The rest of the talk was 5 hours of a lot of science and different things that are published right out there to back up some of the spirit stuff. Like, he's really interesting. And I like that. I like that because I'm a very logical person. And so I'm kind of equal parts logic and just complete batshit, creativity. So to be able to hear that there's a whole bunch of logic and science behind some of the spiritual things that he was talking about was really neat to me. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, and so like one of the things he was talking about though was he said that I think he said this is the fifth time. He said this is the fifth time that we've populated the planet. And so like he said that there's been multiple like Atlantises. There's been multiple things constructed at the sites of like the various different temples and things like that around the world because um say like the first couple civilizations when they went down and then the earth was repopulated eventually, that people are drawn to the same things, right? And it's like stuck in your consciousness and in your energy and in your DNA and all that stuff. And so people have a
Hmm.
tendency to want to go back and rebuild those things, right? And I thought that was really fascinating to think about because if if there was, I don't think we would ever be able to actually find proof of it necessarily because eventually everything would just be dust, right?
Yeah.
Um, but it is interesting to think about, especially like I was saying with the cycles, right? The other thing I thought was interesting too was if you think about like your reality and your perception and how much your perception shapes your reality, right? It's possible, I guess, that aliens could be existing right around us in the same way that we know that there's spirits around us, right?
Yeah.
And that we just can't perceive them because we're not tuned into that wavelength.
Yep.
And so I think that's always a really interesting thing too. So when you see things on a camera, or like little kids, obviously, a lot of times can see spirit really easy. It's like maybe there's alien stuff here and it's just not here. You know what I mean? Like you can't it's not materialized because our because of our perception and the reality of it.
Oh yeah.
Um
I mean, even just look at, like dogs and animals and stuff. I mean, they
mhm,
see stuff that, you'll see a dog, barking at nothing, but
yeah.
they would never do that otherwise. You know what I mean? You know your
Yeah.
animal and they would never, so I mean there yeah, I mean, there's stuff that we just either A are not open to or are just
Mhm.
not at a frequency that it's received. That's why I fully think that, aliens, are all around us because we wouldn't know it unless they showed themselves to us
Right.
anyways, or we tap into that frequency. And most people have no desire to tap into a frequency that would welcome that because that's too
Yeah.
scary for them. It's too outside of their comfort zone. And you know what? And that's fine. That's not everybody's role is to come here and be a light worker or to be open to that. Like some people just want to come and they're kind of like a placeholder in society of just doing their thing. They're just chugging in for the lessons they signed up for, and then they're going
Right.
to dip out and next lifetime they'll come and do something else.
Mhm.
So I to me I think it's really interesting and intriguing, and I think it would be cool. But at the same time, I mean, there's still stuff that's scary to me. Like, I mean, I tell my guides all the time because they always want to show me things, and I'm like, I don't want to see anything. I just
Yeah,
want
I'm
to.
not a big fan of seeing either.
Yeah,
I'd
I
rather
don't.
I feel things and I'm okay with that.
Exactly. I feel enough. I know
Yeah.
when things are there. I know when I need to add extra shields, or
Alright.
if I'm like just not in a space where I'm open and ready, and nobody, they're not going to push anyone to be either unless it's something that I think was like charted for them,
Mhm.
in their Akashic records or something like that. So
Right. That makes sense.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
so
mean,
then do you think we've had technological help from aliens in the past? Like, you talk about Egypt, and if you look at some of the hieroglyphs and some of the things that they worshipped and stuff like that, do you think that they were, truly worshiping some sort of, alien? You hear about, like, the Seven Sisters and how, like, at one of the Cryon channels, he was talking about how they went around to all these different, tribes where they have not, like they haven't really evolved technologically. They're still the same as they've been forever, and primitive tribes. And they asked them to tell them their creation story, like how did we get here, right? And he said that out of all the tribes that they went to, they're almost all exactly identical, and that they
Mhm.
all have something that ties into the Seven Sisters in the constellation, where the Pleiadian, what is it? What's the word I'm looking for? The Palides. Is it called the Palides? I think it's called the Palides.
Pleiades.
I don't know if it's called the
Pleiades?
Pallades or if it's Palides. I don't know. Either way,
I don't even
you
know,
know what I'm talking
honestly.
about, though, right?
I read some stuff about that, but not heaps.
Yeah,
So
yeah. But I mean, but you know what I'm talking about, probably.
yeah.
And so they all talk about that, and he was discussing that, the channeled information he's gotten was that at one point the Seven Sisters were actual like beings that came down and taught in Lemuria and stuff like that. And he talked about the demise of Lemuria and how that split in Hawaii and all that kind of stuff. Is really interesting. Um,
Cool.
but yeah, so I mean, that was the thing that was common between all of these tribes. Apparently, was that we had some sort of star help, right, in creating things. And so it's been something I've always been really fascinated with, is if it's true or not. And so I don't know. I mean, like, what are your thoughts? Have you ever gotten any information about that kind of stuff, or?
Like from my guides.
Yeah. Hmm.
I probably, and I've just probably assimilated it into my. I, dude, I read so much weird shit, So it's like, I, there's plenty of people that think that there's, you know, an alien civilization living under Mount Shasta,
Right.
that, what is it, the Talos or something, and then, that live under Antarctica. And
Right. Right.
then there's people that believe in the reptilians and how they also live underground and how they're also above ground, but like, people that are in power, I've
Right.
seen videos online of people where they're given a speech and like their eyes do that, like
I know
the
exactly what you're
reptile
talking
thing,
about. Yeah. Yeah.
and so basically how I feel about everything conspiracy is I love to read about it. I love to learn about it. And the more stuff I read, now I'm starting to see things like clinking together, because
Right.
I feel like we're in the middle of this mass awakening right now.
Yep.
And for all the weird stuff that I've been reading, that I've just been reading purely for my own personal entertainment, enjoyment, and being like, yeah, maybe it's real, but until I see it for myself, like, I'm really not going to believe it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Because for as much as I love to research and as spiritual as I am, I can still be very skeptic, like,
Yeah.
because I want to be able to feel it and see it myself. If I don't get like an intuitive hit on it, then, I'll still read it for fun, but I'm not going to necessarily buy into it. But now all of the of the weird stuff that I've been researching and just enjoyable, like candy reading, is
Mhm.
now kind of all starting to line up together and looking like, holy shit, maybe it is a biblical time, and like maybe there really are reptilians, and maybe, they're the stuff that's coming out is crazy right now, like, why can't this stuff be real, and I do believe that there is a lot of darkness that's being purged right now. And if you would have asked me 10 years ago if I thought this kind of darkness existed in the world, I would have never ever believed it, because I'm a
Right.
very positive, optimistic person, and I think intuitively people are good
Yeah. Me too.
for the most
At their
part,
core. Yeah. Right.
at their core, but then I had an experience, several years ago with a guy that I dated that was super narcissistic and da 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 da. And, he kind of opened up this world of darkness that
Mhm.
I really just honestly didn't think existed. And for so long, I tried to like uh, help him and hold space for him and like kind of, I don't want to say bring him to the light, but,
I know what you
just
mean. Yeah.
be that kind of, positive support. And then I realized, this is just a toxic person. This is what he's choosing. And he firmly believes, and enjoys the dark side and the stuff that it can bring. And if I hadn't had that experience, I wouldn't have believed that darkness even really existed, honestly. And
Yeah.
so now with all the like just horrific stuff that's coming up with, the dumbs and the kids and,
Yeah.
all that darkness, I'm like, the few people that I've really talked to about it that are not kind of in the spiritual, more like, I hate to say it, but like kind of regular people,
Right.
you know, like they're like, oh, I just can't believe that that's true. And I'm like, I've looked darkness in the face, and I know that he was, you know, 3 steps into darkness. And if that's what 3 steps looks like, then all the way has got to be terrifying. And I can
Right.
absolutely see how this can be real. And I want nothing to do with it.
Mhm.
However, you know, I'm not going to pretend it doesn't exist, because
Right.
you have to bring stuff to light so that it can be healed.
Right.
And I feel like that's the time that we're in right now. So yeah, I mean, I mean, just, I mean, did you see that picture with the beam of light on New York City the other day?
Yeah. Yep.
I mean,
Mhm.
yeah, I guess sure it could have been Photoshop, but like, you know, maybe it wasn't.
What's interesting about that though is even if it was Photoshop, okay?
Yeah,
If you get enough people to believe that that was something angelic or that it was divine, you know, intervened in some way, like that generates light, right?
yeah,
And
for
so
sure.
even if it was fake, there's still a purpose for it.
Yeah,
You know, and that's something that's really, really like this is pretty this is pretty controversial, but um
oh, I'm excited.
so when you talk about good and evil and you talk about biblical times and all those things, right?
Hmm.
Um, Something that came to me a while ago was this is gonna sound so fucked up to say out loud. We should be thankful and we should have love for the devil.
Yeah, of course. I mean, what all he is a fallen angel, anyways, right?
Yes. But here's what came to me, right? Is I had this really crazy ass dream and it was really crazy. I'm talking like I don't know if you ever saw The Cell with J Lo in it. Or like think of like the most fucked up Marilyn Manson video you could possibly create in your mind. It was that kind of weird, okay?
Okay.
It was really, really weird. And anyways, what came out of it was I felt a sort of sadness towards the devil. And what came to me was, and it works this way with people as well, is that at our core, right, we're all part of the source, and the source is good.
Hmm.
But even the devil, okay, all the people who are doing these things that are fucked up are people who are playing a role. They're
Yeah.
playing a role with a very specific purpose because you cannot create that light without that opposite being there. And
Hmm.
so like part of me I don't like the messed up stuff that's going on, but I understand why it needs to happen. And part of me is kind of like it's not thankful is not the right word, but you get when do you get where I'm going?
Yeah, I mean, you can acknowledge what's happening and just being like, okay, this is part of the greater picture of the unfoldment of what needs to
Yes,
happen right now. And, you know,
I don't
being
like it, but I understand its purpose and I understand its role in creating
the
awareness
awakening.
and light and transforming the bad into good and all those things, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it doesn't mean I approve of it. It's just shit that happens, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Um,
And, you know, the thing that kind of worries me most, well, at times about this whole like awakening is that, you know, once all this stuff really becomes revealed of what's going on and what's happening, and, uh, you know, even with like Q stuff, you know, that I've seen
right,
online, you know, if all goes according to the plan of Q, right? Like, let's say that it all goes down, like, you know, they're still not going to show all of humanity everything that's been going on because they can't handle it. There's
right.
no way. Like, you
It's
can't
too
handle the
much.
darkness. Yeah, I mean, I saw a picture once online of something that like I could barely sleep for 2 days. Like I had to do so much clearing for it. I mean, can you imagine the people that don't know how to do any energy clearing and that we're
No,
exposed to all that? I mean, like it would just be horrific. Like, I
yeah.
mean, it's even now if I think about it for even a half a second, I'm like, oh, and I have to
Don't
like do
yeah.
stuff, you know?
On that note, don't ever look up cannibal clubs.
Ugh. Yeah, no, don't.
There,
Yeah,
there's legit places that people donate themselves to when they pass away. Donate. Um, and then they are remembered always by being turned into a wonderful meal that they can live on within the being of somebody else because they nourish their body. I don't know how the hell I came across that one night, but I did. And I was just like
I haven't seen that.
I
That doesn't
literally, I
surprise
bet
me.
you my face, because like, all right, so literally, I'm like sitting on the toilet, right, which is where I spend most of my Facebook time, right? So I'm like on the toilet,
Fair.
and I'm sure my face was like, I mean, I was just like,
Yeah,
oh
a
my
little bit
god,
DM after that.
yeah, I'm like, oh my god, I'm like, this is a real place, like this is a real place where people do this, and it's not
Now,
fake, like this is a real place, and
honestly, it doesn't surprise me because it's like if you could turn yourself into a tree, or and even when I used to be in chiropractic school a long time ago, I did gross dissection and on cadavers, and we had human bodies we were doing dissection on, and to me that was just extremely powerful because it was an incredible learning experience that I would is really worth 1,000 times the price of what you pay for it, because the gift that people donate their body, at the end of the day, like, you leave your body, it really doesn't matter because your spirit is gone. It's just you don't need it anymore. So I could understand like the mindset of some people that would donate their body,
yeah,
so on that aspect of like kind of knowing what that experience is like, I can see how people would be like, whatever, like might as well be a tasty treat for somebody or
I
whatever. But
yeah.
but yeah, it
Yeah,
gives me
it's just
shivers. I'm
not
not gonna lie.
it's not something I'm into.
Yeah,
But
not
yeah,
not my jam. But like,
there's
uh,
tribes out there that are into that stuff and still practice that. I think there's like one tribe left in the world that does it. And for some reason when I hear that, I'm kind of like, okay. But then when I hear that like there's a fine dining experience in California where like there's a club and
yeah,
celebrities, and I'm like, like that just is not, it doesn't sit good with me. It just doesn't sit good with me.
yeah. Yeah, because the assumption is that those people did not give permission for their, you know,
Even if they
physical self to
did,
be. Yeah,
yeah, even if they did, I'm still not okay with it. It just,
yeah.
I'm not trying to be judgmental or anything, but
No,
like
dude. Look. I
some
would never
things you
sign
just,
up for
I feel like
that,
there's
but
some things you just don't do. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I don't. There's nothing about that sits well with me. That's for sure. So, but at the end
no.
of the day, I always kind of go back to, well, everyone has free will choice, and if
Yeah,
that's
right.
what you want to do, then by all means. But I just can't imagine that the likelihood that it's a free will choice is very high. So yeah, it just kind of makes me want to vomit in my
Yeah,
mouth a little bit.
for sure. Um,
Ugh.
so
All right, let's talk
what are
about
your
something happy.
thoughts on, so I had a thought a number of months ago, and my thought was like basically like what if, you read about the holy war between angels and demons and fallen angels and all these things, right? Like what if that war never stopped, because I don't believe that it did. What if that war never stopped and actually we're the angels and
Like,
just,
we being the light workers, the 144,000, or we
well,
being all the people on Earth?
just the humans in general, like, is that a thing? Do you think that's a possibility? Like, we've just changed our form, I suppose. Do you think that you know you hear about like I know people who have guides who are archangels, and who have been able to like communicate with archangels and stuff like that. And it just, I don't know, when I think of like soul groups and I think of um a lot of different spiritual things, for some reason my mind always goes back to, the people that are here trying to do good. you know maybe they're the angels, right? Like you said, the light workers, maybe they're the angels. But then would that mean that everybody else is a could potentially be a fallen angel? And like I said, are angels just playing roles? And whether they're fallen or not, I have to believe that God or the source loves the fallen angels as much as the regular angels, because they're serving their purpose. Like they're doing what they're supposed to do. That's just, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they're playing the role that they signed up for in this lifetime.
Right.
Yeah. I don't. Honestly, I really don't know about the angels and the fallen angels and whatnot. I've been told before by psychics that I'm an earth angel.
Hmm.
So, I mean, that's really all I really don't know. I mean, I read stuff about, archangels and stuff like that. But I don't know is the short answer. I mean, and I don't know if we'll ever know. I mean, unless, even if somebody came up to me and they had like the most stellar wings of all time, I would be like, let me look at them,
Right.
or like, I mean, energetically, I would believe them,
Right.
because if it rang true for me, because I just know when I feel something that's true for me,
Right. Right.
But I would still be like, dude, let me see, like I would still want to see, how they attach. And I'm too curious around good. Like I still want to see with my own eyes,
Mm-hmm.
um, to feel that things are true. And I think that part of that is just, the society that we're in and how we're kind of brainwashed to being like, well, I'll believe it when I see it,
Right.
and, just being skeptical in general. I mean, do I think it's possible? Absolutely. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I feel like there's so many timelines, and, I always tell my clients and stuff, I feel like Earth is just a giant, like, choose your own adventure book, from
Yeah.
when we were kids.
Yeah. Right.
And, you get to that fork in the road and it's like, okay, I could go this way or I could go that way. And, all about choosing the highest frequency timeline of what feels good to you. And inevitably you're going to get to where you're supposed to go, but
Right.
there's different ways to get there and different experiences that'll be had. And some of them are maybe a shortcut and some of them are spiritual bypassing. And,
Mm-hmm.
it is what it is. So I think everybody has, their mission for being here.
Right.
And whether that's, good, quote unquote, or bad, I don't really necessarily think that there's such a thing. It's, right now, I think that everybody has signed up for this Earth timeline, for this giant mass awakening on the planet. And I
Yeah.
do believe that there are millions of aliens watching the show right now, and other beings from other star systems and that are watching the show. I mean, there's a lady that I follow on Facebook who every day does live videos where she shows, things that look like ships coming out of the sun, which is, just a giant portal.
Right.
So it's
interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I see too much weird things to believe that all it is what everyone thinks is happening. I mean,
Yeah.
like, that's why I feel like it's such a like scamdemic happening right now. Is it's like all we're getting is mixed messages right now.
Yeah.
Everything is a mixed message. So to me, if you're not stepping back and saying, okay, what's the bigger picture? Like, what could possibly be happening? You're really doing yourself a disservice right now, because you're just living in fear, and living in fear is the worst possible thing you can do because it lowers your frequency.
Right.
And, if you're into the reptilian theories, then you're just providing heaps of loosh for these people, or beings, I guess you could say. And, you're just feeding that. So, like,
Yeah.
the best thing you can do right now is really just step back and be like, all right, cool. So we're playing this weird game on Earth right now. And it's probably a load of BS. And I hope that all the Q stuff is true. And it's just a shield so that they can get their job done and,
Right.
keep as many people safe in in the interim as possible. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see how the chips fall.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you think that, do you think that we're in biblical times? Like I kind of feel like we are. And I don't know if it's exactly the way Revelations said it was going to be, kind of thing, but I definitely feel
Yeah.
like we're I feel like we're in a very pivotal moment of good and evil, and I feel like we're winning. It just doesn't feel that way, because the more light you shine in a room full of cockroaches, the more roaches you're going to see. And so
They're
I
all going to
feel
come out
like,
to the surface.
yeah, I definitely feel like you said, that we're here to help shift things. But I think the more light that's produced, the more, like you said, darkness is being exposed and cleansed, and then
Mhm.
moving on. And so, I do sort of feel like it's actually weird. I went from thinking that the Bible had to be mostly just bullshit and stuff that was made up to like scare people, to
Yeah.
then actually being able to pick certain parts of it and apply it to things that I've learned or that I've thought. Like it's like I found meaning in it after the fact, right?
Yeah,
Um, in most religious texts, actually, that I've read, I can look at them with different eyes now than when I was younger and I was just sort of angry at the world, right? So
yeah, of course. I mean, when I was a kid, we used to go to church, and we stopped probably when I was in about, I don't know, fifth grade. But up until then, I went to church school and, did, vacation Bible school and all that stuff. And so it's been a while, so I'm not like a Bible reader really, but I remember the stories from when I
yeah,
was a kid. The church school stories, and stuff they turned into movies. Moses and yada yada, right?
right, right,
And to me, I've always been very curious and very questioning ever since, like, basically I could talk. And I remember being young and asking questions to just people in general, like, well, how does this work? And how do, because things, like, they would talk about things in the Bible, that just, like, didn't make sense with how the real world is. But then everyone that was like a super Bible, Christian or whatever kind of person,
right.
a religious person, I should say, would just fully believe all this, like, super esoteric stuff from the Bible, like, but then, like, in real life, that just, like, went out the window. Like, there's no possible way that anyone could have any sort of ESP, but, the Bible says XYZ is possible. Like, to me, that just didn't make any sense. It felt so incongruent to me. And the more that I've, like, more, I guess you could say, spiritual I've become, and the more kind of like research I've done in general, the more I keep thinking, oh, okay, I can see how maybe like some of the stuff would happen in the Bible. But I also read a lot of stuff that says that there's a lot of stuff, the Bible's had so many revisions over,
Right.
centuries, et cetera, et cetera. And that to say that it was, written by, and who wrote it anyways, you know what I mean? There's no thing in the front of the Bible that says this was, written by,
Mhm.
by God. I don't know.
Don't you think it was
So
channeled?
I mean, sure, why not? It could have been. I don't see why it wouldn't have been. And then what about the Book of Enoch? And what about, like, what are they hiding in the Vatican?
Right.
What's in the Vatican library that,
They
like,
did get rated, right? If I remember
yeah, I
correctly
think
last year.
yeah, I think I saw
Yeah.
that. So I mean that's the place that I'd be I want to read stuff in that library, maybe not
Yeah.
there, but it's, how much information has been suppressed, and then of course there's people saying, it's the winners that write the history books and yada yada. So it's, to me, I take everything that I read with a grain of salt, because it's like, well, who wrote this? I mean, I could write a autobiography of my life and it would be all my perception of who I am now, whereas if I would have written an autobiography 10 years ago, it would have been the version of me that I was then, and it would have been maybe a little bit different of a story, you know what I mean, because I hadn't learned the lessons yet or whatever. So I
Mhm.
mean, how much is true, how much is not true, and what's your version of truth, what's my version of truth? We can look at the same thing and read it completely differently and perceive it differently in our minds. So it's, to me, everything is kind of like just floats in the air, and you can choose what, take what feels good, and and leave the rest.
Leave the
And
rest. Yeah. But I
you know
totally get you. Mhm. So, do you think something that I used to talk about quite a bit is I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of like currency and the gold standard and all that kind of stuff, because I could spend a long time going down that rabbit hole. But um, something that I discussed on a previous podcast a little bit and was touching on was gold in the way that it was used by ancient civilizations and royalty and spiritual leaders and things like that. And one time I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about your traditional crowns, okay? Like
yeah,
Egyptians in particular. And so they have, the banner of gold, whatever, the crown of gold, and there's jewels in very specific places, and there's specific jewels in specific
yeah,
colors and all these things. Everything kind of had a purpose. I don't think it was 100% decorative. And what I thought at the time was, okay, my IT background, obviously, gold is a great conductor. And then knowing what I know about gemstones and crystals and the ability to, magnify things, and where I'm going with this,
yeah,
hold power and all those kind of things. Is it possible that spiritual leaders in ancient civilizations or royalty in ancient civilizations wore different jewelry at different points, their ankles, their wrists, around their throat and their heart chakra, as well as the top, because they actually understood that it magnified and or allowed them to channel information or be in touch with spirit from the gods and all those kind of things better. But they didn't maybe they didn't exactly know why it worked. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But and has that led to the hoarding of gold on top of the suppression of um, beliefs outside of sort of organized, very structured, rigid, religion and things, is because if people were to realize that that was the true um, use for those things, that it wasn't just like bling and whatever, and that it actually served a purpose, then that's something that maybe would cause people to wake up a little bit to how we've evolved to where we're at and what we've forgot and what is not teached anymore, or taught. Sorry.
I mean, yeah, now I just really want a crown. I I never really thought about it like that before, but I guess I've just never really put that much thought into. I mean, other than it being like, ooh, shiny, pretty, like, that feels good to me. Because, like, there are things that, physical things in general that feel good to me. And sometimes I see things that I can taste and they taste really good, like things that you wouldn't eat, but the frequency of it is like delicious to me, if that makes sense. And so when I think of, using gold and jewels as like a superconductor to connect to source. I mean, yeah, why wouldn't they do that? Of course they would know that. You know what I mean? Like, if you're somebody who's reached some sort of like peak level, because to be able to climb in society at any level, you have to have some sort of awareness of, even if you don't consciously understand it, there's a part of you that's like, it's extremely appealing and you want to chase it, like how people chase money, for power or opportunities or whatever, right? So, I mean, it makes sense to me that, of course, the people that have achieved, some sort of semblance of hierarchy in the status of humanity would, of course, have ways to connect more with, and I think that that's probably directly tied into, the spiritual movement of like money being dirty and not wanting to trade for, for money. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many spiritual people that are kind of like, um, I'm less spiritual if I'm, getting rewarded for the work that I'm doing. Which I don't subscribe to that. I feel like there's got to be some sort of energy exchange. And, in society right now, money is the way that works. So, although I would happily take gold crowns. I think your sound dipped out, babe.
How about now?
Oh, great. Perfect.
Sorry. Money is energy. Like, there is a energy to money. You can attract it. You can, bring it in. You can let it go. Like, money is very much, energy, like everything is. So I definitely believe that as well. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. And I really don't even know what made me think about it. Like I said, sometimes I just get things that come down and they don't really feel like they're mine. So I am like, okay, that must be channeled information, right? And yeah, it was when they uncovered some of the more stuff with King Tut's tomb, and I was just looking at the jewelry, and I
Yeah.
was like, and I just felt like, I just feel like there has to be more to it than what we're being told, and maybe there's no proof to say that's what those things are for, but I just felt like, there has to be stuff. Like, I've meditated with crystals on my third eye and
Yeah.
different, and I've had Reiki healing where they've used crystals on the different chakras and things like that. And that's kind of what made my brain go that direction, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it
I
was
mean,
kind of like even the bracelets, right? Like, if you have
oh,
energy,
yeah.
you're grounded and you have energy coming through your body and out your hands, and maybe in one hand and kind of out the other, and all those sort of things. Like, um, it's all the places that people wear jewelry. I don't know. Made sense to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think that you necessarily need any of that to be able to tap into the
I don't
higher
either.
fields and,
Nope.
but but I don't think it hurts either. I mean, if you want to have something that's pretty that helps you, that makes your brain connect easier to it to be able to then, do it. I mean, then by all means, like go to town for it. I mean, I have some
Yeah.
crystal jewelry and stuff. I mean, I've got some little, earrings that are different stones and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, why not? If you want to make it easier on yourself to channel and put a bunch of golden stones all over you, by all means, plus it'll help clear your chakras,
Yeah.
so if you are, especially because I think if you're in those kind of positions of power, you're probably regularly accosted with like things that you just don't want to deal with or whatever, but you kind of have to anyway. So why wouldn't you like power up by like adorning yourself and all of these kind of extra protective and shields and just easier ways for you to kind of stick to that frequency, which I can, which is why, I would wear, maybe like some black obsidian or something like as an anklet or whatever, to kind of just keep me rooted to the ground or whatever, So, yeah, I mean, to me, it makes perfect sense. I mean, I've never thought about it in that context, but it makes perfect sense. So, of course, they would, if they were dark, so to speak, of course they would suppress that because then, people that are dark typically live in fear of what if everyone else, awakens, then we'll lose this power, and so of course it's, suppressed. I mean, that makes sense to me, just logically speaking. Have you read about or seen stuff about Nasara Jasara?
It sounds really, really familiar to me, but I don't know what you're talking about. Like what you just said sounds really familiar.
Yeah, so I've actually only just started seeing stuff about this in the last week. And considering the rabbit holes of things that I read, like I now fully believe that like, stuff is of course exposed to you when you're ready to learn about it, like when you need to hear about it, right? So I'll send you this video that I found the other day on YouTube. Maybe you can attach it to your thing somehow. And
yeah, I can do that in the description.
Yeah, if you like it. But it basically, so Nasara, I can't remember what it stands for, but Nasara is the US version of this, and then Jasara is G for global. And it's like they're talking about, because I've seen stuff for a while now about people being terrified about, switching over to digital currency and being tracked and traced and all the fear that comes along with that, right? But of course, every time I see stuff like that, I think, well, the world is not all bad. So what's the flip side of this, But I had never really been shown the flip side of what could be possible until I saw this Nasara Jasara stuff the other day. So I really wish that I had like a tab open that I could like read it to you right now. But basically the gist is that there's like supposedly going to be this like global reset of currency because of like, you saw how Trump basically bought back the Federal Reserve.
Yeah, he brought it under the Treasury.
Yeah, okay. So when that happened, I was like, oh my God.
I was when I saw that, I was freaking out. I was like, that's amazing, actually.
Never in my lifetime did I think that would happen. Actually, honestly, never ever did I think that would happen, ever. So when I saw that, I was like, boom, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if people don't understand why that's like so mind blowing, like just wait until you see this Nasara Jasara stuff roll out if it's going to go down, because it's basically, the feds have just been, printing all this money that's not backed by anything. So the money is essentially worthless, and now they're supposedly going to bring everything back to the gold standard. And we're backed by, I think, gold, silver, and platinum, I think, if I read correctly.
Gold, silver, platinum, yeah.
And been creating basically a new currency. I think they were calling it rainbow currency. And I don't know if it's actually going to be physical currency or if it's all going to be digital or whatever, but then just look how things have been. Okay, this is why people call me a conspiracy theorist. Okay, it's like I read stuff like this, and then what do you know, the next day all I'm seeing on my news feed is people from all over America posting photos of signs saying, pay exact change. We're all out of coins, all the coins are running out and, nobody can get coins. And I'm like, that's weird. How does America run out of quarters, dimes, nickels, and pennies?
You don't unless somebody says it's time to pull currency. I mean,
right. and then you go to the bank and you can't even get any. The
Right.
banks are now doing promotional, giveaways for people to bring in their jars of quarters and stuff from home. Like,
Yeah.
to me, I'm like, that seems juicy. Like, let's
Yeah.
see how, and then all of a sudden I'm seeing stuff about, buying Vietnamese dong or money from Zimbabwe or whatever, and how apparently when the currency is going to get reset, that it's going to be a level playing field now, and that the people that are investing, in these other countries' currency now, forex trading kind of shenanigans, now it's like there's the potential that could turn into, dollars here could turn into thousands of dollars, and so to me that's very intriguing. I find it very interesting.
Yeah.
And and other stuff with Shara is about like eliminating all debt, because a lot of the stuff that the Federal Reserve and income tax and da da da, like that's
Right.
all illegal based on the Constitution, and they've been getting away with it for hundreds.
I
Right?
I I know exactly what I if it's a video I'm thinking of, I swear to God, my wife was just watching that video in our living room literally 2 days ago. It was 2 guys talking,
Yeah,
British maybe. It could be a
yeah,
totally different
very, yeah.
video, I don't know, but whatever she was watching, I was listening to it and I
That's
was
probably
cooking.
what it was, because I shared it a couple times on Facebook because I was like, this
Okay.
is intriguing.
Maybe that's where she got it from. Yeah, no, I like it's as you're talking about it, I'm like, I
Unreal.
know I just saw this. I know I just saw it.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, if this is true and this is what they're rolling out,
right.
I mean, just open up the heavens and rain down glory upon us. I mean, it's to me, it's the first bubble of hope, besides
Yeah.
like other Q stuff that I've seen in like months and months and months. And it's like,
Mhm.
because I don't want to live in fear. I'm like, you know what? Let's just hope that all this stuff is real and it's all going to play out. And I feel so many people waking up now to things that they never were. I mean, just look how viral the Epstein didn't kill himself hashtag went.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
people are questioning things because the narrative on the mainstream media is just flip flopping back and forth. That people are like, maybe the news isn't telling the truth.
Right.
Maybe, and then starting to do research and then realizing, oh my God, like all of the media that we watch is literally owned by a small handful of people with an agenda.
Right.
Maybe we should start to look at these, other journalists that are out there that are,
I don't watch any mainstream media stuff at all.
yeah, I
Literally
don't
everything
either.
that I get is from citizen journalism off of Twitter.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
And now Parler as well, obviously. But yeah,
Mhm.
I stopped watching the mainstream stuff, all of it, a long, long time ago. Even like, your Breitbarts and some of those like other, smaller news organizations that have popped up. I don't even look at their stuff. I mean, I just look at what I can see as a pattern,
Yeah.
you know,
Exactly.
on Twitter. I mean, it's almost like it's so funny because again, talking about going back and watching things and them having a different effect on me than when I first watched them is like The Matrix. The Matrix is like such a different movie for me now than it was when it first came out.
Wasn't that
It's
Keanu
crazy.
Reeves says it's a documentary anyways?
Right. Well, and they're making the fourth one, right? Um
I did hear that. My dad's very excited about it.
yeah. I mean, I hope it's good. I really do, but I actually was thinking like, really they're making a fourth one? And then I thought I feel like it's going to be as good as what I imagine it will be in my mind because the timing of everything is perfect. And I hope that when you see The Matrix, when you see V for Vendetta, when you see like a lot of those movies, I'm a firm believer that a lot of the written literature, a lot of the movies, a lot of art, like that, there's a lot of people who have channeled messages and themes and things to help progress us along a certain way to get to where we're at now and get people to open up and think about those things. And so,
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's just really fascinating, to me. And so, yeah, I have a feeling if that's the case and the pattern holds true that the next Matrix, even if it's not that great of a movie, the themes in it for people who will take that and pick it apart and really just think about it is going to be really, really good. So,
Yeah, I mean the message is going to be the most important part of it. Like even if it was like a complete like B movie, like nobody would care
right.
because they have such a cult following already that
Yeah.
those core people for sure are going to watch it and share it. So,
Mm.
it's people that wouldn't typically be exposed to it or have no idea that parts of that are even documentary. They're
Yeah.
going to watch it anyways for the entertainment value.
Right.
So
Even like the Dark Crystal, Mikkel would talk about it all the time and be like, "Oh my god, the Dark Crystal is like one of my favorite movies." Whatever. I never saw the original until Netflix released like a TV series of episodes that came out just on Netflix, and it was like a prequel to the original. And so I watched the original so that I could watch the prequel because I was like, man, this show looks really good,
yeah.
and it's awesome. It's awesome. I'm not a huge fan of well, that I almost said I'm not a huge fan of movies that use puppets, but I'd be lying because of Star Wars. But you know what I'm saying, right? Like it's not something that really jumps out at me as like, oh man, I can't wait to watch this thing. But I loved it. I absolutely loved it. So yeah, even watching that now is just a totally different, you know, it's like it's the overthinker's blessing and curse, right? Like
Yeah.
when
I
I
mean,
first saw the Matrix, I have them somewhere. I have the philosophy of the Matrix. I went and looked at all the books that they were influenced by when they wrote the Matrix, and I bought them all. Like the same books that the directors all read to write the Matrix, I bought them all. Like as soon as I saw the movie, I bought them all and
I've
was
only,
reading them.
I've only seen like maybe I watched the first Matrix movie. I haven't seen any of the other ones, and I just was so because I only just saw the Matrix like in the last year,
Oh wow.
and so I just was I don't I just had a how sometimes when spirit just blocks stuff from you,
Yeah.
like that's how I felt about the Matrix for since
Yeah.
it came out. Basically, it was just like this is not for you, this is not for you,
Right.
and but of course everyone was always talking about it, so I had like a gist of what it was about, and then when I finally watched it, because I think it was like on Netflix or something, I was like, yeah, let's give it a whirl. It was just like it was so intense for me that I was just like,
Yeah.
nope, I'm good. My dad's like obsessed with me. He's like, oh, are you gonna watch the other ones? And I was like, one was enough for me. I'm good. Like I see what's happening in society. I feel enough. Like I don't
Yeah.
need to like then experience that kind of intense energy for fun. That's not fun for me. So,
Yeah. Yeah. No, they are. They're definitely intense. That's for sure.
but I mean, I
Um,
can definitely see how people would be like all over it. So,
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the thing is any like even like Inception, if you've ever seen Christopher Nolan's Inception, it's worlds inside of a world inside of a world inside of a world kind of thing, like
yeah,
multiple layers deep of things. And I love movies like that. Like anything that can just really fuck with my mind to the point where it's like you wouldn't think I would want that as an overthinker, but I do. Like I love it. I'm like, make my brain hurt, with this because anytime that I've been in that position, I get a lot of growth out of it. So yeah, so I really like, that kind of stuff.
yeah,
Um, have you ever seen Zeitgeist?
yes.
Okay. I think we maybe had to talk about it before.
I've seen all of
Um,
them.
yeah, okay. So I was curious.
That was actually my first. That was my first introduction to uh, anything conspiracy theory. Actually,
Mhm.
that was. I mean, that it really was. I remember I was. This was probably 2009. I think like the fall of 2009, and my boyfriend at the time was doing an internship abroad, and he sent me this link, and he was like, "I really feel like you're supposed to watch this," and I'm like, "All right," and he's like, "But maybe you should like watch it with a friend," which actually I could recommend for everybody if you've
Yeah.
never seen it. And so I remember my friend, who's also a light worker, a very
Mhm.
powerful light worker. She is a chiropractor, um, and and this is really before I really understood or knew what light workers were. I mean, I knew. I mean, I've always been like kind of energetically aware, but I had just no knowledge of any of this at this point. And
Right.
we watched this movie together, and we were literally like, our eyes were just like saucers because we were like, this makes perfect sense. Like
I
this,
know.
so much stuff to me was unexplainable before, and I just couldn't
Yeah.
understand why. Like nothing slotted into place for me.
Right.
And then when I watched this, I was like, holy shit! Like this, like.
Yeah.
And then I remember for years after that, probably probably the next 2 years solid, I was like obsessed with documentaries. I just watched
Me too.
so many rabbit hole documentaries.
Yeah.
And then after a while, actually, I got to the point where I was just so distraught because I took so much in and I had no knowledge of how to like protect myself energetically and
Uh-huh.
all of that. And I just had taken so much in, and just the horrors of the deception and,
Yeah.
like, and things that were so, conspiracy theory stuff that were so untrue, quote, that people would say. And I'm like, but that's the only fucking thing that makes sense, bro. Like, open your mind,
Yeah.
and like the reality of what they're showing us in the media and everything else, like that's what doesn't make sense. Like, just use like logical, critical thinking skills here, and not to say that all of it is 100% true, but it sure as hell felt true compared to everything else that I've been hearing. And
Yeah.
it really, I mean, I took a break after that for God, probably like 3 years from anything even remotely you could consider conspiracy theory or an offshoot of the norm, because it was so intense for me. I needed all that time to process.
Mm-hmm.
And and then then of course I went right back down the rabbit hole again once I went into like the spiritual side of it.
Give me
So
1 second. My cat. The doors are cracked. How can I show this? The doors are
yeah.
cracked open like this,
Mm-hmm.
which means he could take his paw and say, "Open." Wait, yeah, open this one, right?
Oh yeah.
Instead of doing that, he's literally hitting this one, and they're bouncing off each other.
Gotta let the
Instead of
cat in
just
or out.
opening it. Hold on.
Yeah. Cats, what are you gonna do? They gotta find their own.
It's open.
The spiritual beings of the cats.
Yeah.
Those are some strong teachers there.
Yeah, right. It's weird because I was just talking to my wife about this. I said, everywhere I go, all 3 cats follow me and they lay around me. Like, they're always with me, always.
Love it.
Just everywhere. They just follow me around. And it's just strange. But yeah, the Z guys thing, when I first saw it, I had very similar experience, and I kind of like save that video for special occasions with certain people when we start talking, like my last business partner that I had, right? We were sitting here one night drinking whiskey. I was like, dude, let's watch this movie. And he's like, okay. And we made it, I think we made it like maybe 3/4 of the way through the religious portion of it.
Mm-hmm.
And he made me turn it off. He's like, I can't. He's like, I just it's too much. He's like, I can't like digest it all right now.
Yeah.
And he's like, you're freaking me out. He's like, it makes so much sense that it actually is freaking me out. And I don't want to be like, he's like,
I don't want to go there.
Yeah. He's like, I don't want to go there. I just want to put my blinders back on and go back to the pre-Zeitgeist moment.
And there are some days that I wish I could do that, but it's, I know too much now.
Yeah. That's
so
funny.
Then I just read more.
It's weird, isn't it? Like, kind of addicting. It's weird.
Addicting.
It is, and like that's the thing is like I tend to steer away from too much of the really like deep dark shit, but the stuff that has to do with aliens and astrology, and I love astrology, and even just history, because I'm that kid that like got in trouble at Catholic school for questioning the validity of the Bible because it was written by men. And isn't there a margin for error because men aren't perfect? The Bible says men aren't perfect. Well, if they're not perfect, how can they write this? How can I trust it? Like, overthink. And pissed off every single nun in the school. And so it's
I'm afraid if you question anything.
But it's exciting though, right? Like, that's one thing I can say about everything going on, even like the stuff that's being uncovered. Is I look at it and I'm like, it makes me smile because I'm very pro justice, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm excited for people who have wronged others to get what's coming. And also, though, I've never really quite been so excited about what's coming. Like, I can feel it. I don't know how it's going to all play out, but I can feel it and it feels good to me. And so I'm just kind of like, bring it. Just bring it. I'm ready. Come on, bring it.
Yeah, I really, I just want them to rip the Band-Aid off. Let's get this over with and let's get there already. It's right. Because, the closer we get, the more intense the energies are and
so much stuff is coming out for people because they can finally just feel, even if they don't know what's happening, people can feel these conflicting energies and the different timelines, and they, and their body is processing all of these energies, and they're having, all of this purging and sickness and stuff coming up, but it's really just a purging process that, most people are just so unaware of. And then, and of course, then along with that, there's a lot of people that are choosing to dip out, right?
Right. Yeah.
And, well, die in mortal terms, and which is fine, because I think that, not that I'm pro people dying, but like not everybody is meant to go through the transition and to the other side, because the other side, quote unquote heaven on earth, that kind of they talk about in the spiritual, 5D,
Right.
that's where we're going anyways.
Right.
So it's just another, going back to source or reincarnation or whatever, however that looks like for you and your, how you think that's going to fan out. Right. So, you're seeing a lot of people that are choosing to dip right now. And so I'm also trying to be prepared as much as I can for that,
Mm-hmm. I feel like everybody's going to, like, even the people who are dipping out early. I used to think that, like, oh my God, that stuff happened by accident, or like, oh man, that's, not the way it should have gone down and things. But I tend to believe that now that people go when they want to go and it's pre-planned, because I just have had too many experiences, especially with having different mediumship readings and things, and talking to people on the other side where they're like, no, this is the way it had to happen in order to force this kind of growth in you or someone else, or change this or change that or whatever. And so,
absolutely,
even with the stuff that's been going on in the country lately, as crazy and messed up as all that is, it's like, but that's stuff that's sparking change. And I like to believe, as controversial and messed up as that whole scenario has been, that that's something they agreed to happen. Do you know what I mean? In order to be a catalyst, to be a catalyst for change. And so,
absolutely. If it's happening, it was planned. You don't remember that you planned it, but it's in your Akashic records if you go back, and can look at it. So it's, and that's the thing, is like, you to be able to step back from that and see, okay, all of this atrocious stuff is happening right now, but it's all part of the greater plan. Even the stuff that's it just, because otherwise these people never would have woken up. They never would have awakened. They wouldn't have moved to that next level frequency wise. They wouldn't have purged the ancestral trauma. They wouldn't have stepped into their power, and people are doing that in a big way right now. And even if it's people that don't necessarily like the message that they're saying, there's a reason why they're saying it, because someone needs to hear it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think people are clearing karma. We've talked about that. The last podcast that I had was talking about, like, breaking negative ancestral patterns and stuff, and we started talking about that. Is like, I know for me, and I know because I've been able to feel it. Like, I know I've had very specific things that have happened to me that when they happened, I almost felt like I told Mikkel, I felt like this really strange tingly, like there's electric molecules all around my body. And it was like an aha, and I was like, that was a major like karmic thing that just wrapped up right there. Like, I felt it. And so I think that a lot of people are literally just closing out all of that karma, because if you believe what people are saying, and I do, and I've felt it too, is we're moving to a place where that karmic stuff doesn't affect anything anymore. Like, we're wiping the slate clean, essentially, so that we can start in a new energy where none of that stuff is going to impact anymore,
That makes me think of, like, remember when we were kids, they were playing like video games, you get like a 1-up or something, and you would be like, and like you'd like level up or something. Like, that's always kind of what it feels like to me, is you're like, oh yeah, another up level, all right, let's do it, this is juicy. And I always think of like, kind of like going back to, do you ever read any of Sylvia Browne's stuff?
It's been a long time, but I have.
She had this one book, I'm totally blanking on what it's called right now, but I read it, I don't know, 5-6 years ago maybe, and she talked about how there are 5 exit points, aka like death
Yeah.
options. That sounds kind of bad to say it like that, but where basically there's like 5, like when you're charting out, before you incarnate on Earth, when you're charting out, okay, this is what I want to learn, this is the growth that I want to have, and then you put these 5 possible times where, exit points where you can dip out and be done, right? And if you've accomplished everything that you want to accomplish, when you get to a certain point, then you can either choose that, or if you don't feel like you've quite, wrapped up what you came here to do, you can stay until the next one or whatever.
Right.
You have the option to choose one of the 5. But once you get to the 5th, that's the end. Bye-bye, right? And I loved that because I felt so freeing to me around the concept of death. It really eliminated any fear that I had of death, because I thought, oh my gosh, because I've always been about personal responsibility and integrity and taking control of your life as much as you can, and really acknowledging, what you're here to do and who you are. And I mean, I've always loved anything that had to do with like personal responsibility. And so for me, I was like, oh my God, I love this concept because it felt so freeing to me.
Yeah.
And so then when I started, whenever people die now, I really am almost like removed from it in a way. Even though I'm, of course, sad that people have moved on and I can't be with them. Right. I can, because I'm at a point where I can also feel people that have crossed over. I don't miss them as much as I guess I would otherwise. So to me, I'm a little further removed from it now, I guess you could say. But, when I look back and I think of, specific people in my life that have chosen to cross over, I'm like, oh, that's an interesting exit point. Like, but I can see why they would have chosen that. Like, to me, it's like logically, I can kind of think my way through it and like kind of like in my mind validate why they chose that point, and then it makes me feel better, because the other scenario is you just being so depressed and upset and how could this happen, and being angry, and and all the lower frequency emotions that come along with that. And it's not that I think that anything's wrong with that, it's just that I try not to go there in my life. Not that I'm not to avoid it, but just I would rather I just try to see it for what it is, and not get caught into it. So
I don't even like I mean, this is kind of crappy for my relatives, I suppose, because I feel bad, but I don't go to funerals anymore, like at all, because I don't want to. I have this habit where, like, the last funeral I went to, right, and it was an open casket. Whenever I try to remember them, that's what I see. I don't see the stuff that I want to remember. Like, it's almost like it replaces so much, that energy of that day replaces so much of what I remember, that then I have a hard time remembering the stuff that I want to remember. And so I just kind of was like, I just can't really do it. And it's been years and years and years, like probably 12 years since I've been to a funeral. But it's helped me a ton, especially being an empath, and like being at a funeral and all this stuff going on. It's just too intense for me.
It's just so much pain and anguish, and just frequencies that it's hard to block those, to protect yourself. It takes so much energy. I mean, that would whoop me for just energies that aren't mine from something like that, even with protecting my space beforehand. And that would take me a long time to recover from, honestly. Just just processing through other people's stuff.
Yeah. All right. Well, I want to try to wrap this up a little bit. I know, like, I've already in my brain right now as we're talking, I'm thinking of like 2 to 3 other potential like strains of things that we could end up talking about. So I have like ideas that I'll bring up to you later. Already, I can tell you for sure, within the first about 2 minutes of talking with you, and when you were going through your life coaching, and when you were going through what you do, and teaching people how to protect themselves, and putting up barriers, and working with empaths and stuff, our Discord channel, which I don't put in the comments or anything like that, is kind of just invite only, but a friend of mine, Susu, who greeted you when you joined the Discord, I literally just had a conversation. It was either yesterday or the day before about empaths and protecting, and like ways that you can try to like guard your energy a little bit. Because she does do some, energy work. and like was asking me like, hey, do I have any good resources on how to like strengthen that protection, or like how to work through that, stuff as an empath. And I said, other than me doing a search, not really, and here you are. So yeah, I know she'll watch this. I know she'll probably think the same thing, and I'm sure she'll probably reach out to you. But why don't you take like the last, minute or whatever, and just maybe go back through that little bit if you want to plug anything. I know I have your Instagram up on there, but just, things that you've been able to help people with maybe, and things that you've learned that have helped you, so that if
Sure.
somebody listens to this, they might say like, that could be the one thing that resonates with somebody, that's like, you're the person I need to talk to,
Yeah, for sure. And there's so many different things you can do, so many tips and tricks. There's not just one way to do it. And, any intuitive hit that you get, that feels like, oh, I think this could help, definitely try it, because, I've tried on a lot of things that I've read from other people that didn't necessarily, some that I really loved that I kept, and some that, weren't for me, but I've shared with other people anyways, and they've gotten a lot from it. So, I mean, I have a really big toolbox of all sorts of random things that you can do to kind of protect your energy field, everything from, imagining a bubble of light surrounding you, and,
Yep.
and as basic really as that is, how you can even add extra layers, and how different, because words are powerful, right? Like even just saying like, abracadabra, like that's, just research into just the word abracadabra, and you'll see, how powerful words are. And, if you believe something to be true, therefore it really is true for you and your reality. So,
Right.
So I've had to learn a lot of ways to protect my energetic field, because as I've gone through my own spiritual growth process, I have had to learn new ways and how to like integrate new information. So, because I can feel people so deeply, I can see what they need. I can feel what they need. I can feel into them to see, obviously with permission. I would never like, I would never just be like, tell me all your things, but I mean, I can see intuitively, like, what are the things that would help somebody, and especially in the context with which they need it. Like, I spend a lot of time with clients teaching them how to trust and tune into their intuition, because I feel like people just, for the most part, don't really trust it, without physical concrete proof. So I kind of, I'll ease people in with, we'll try this, like, I mean, even just going to the grocery store and picking out veggies, things that are higher frequency in that way, so there's a lot of little ways that you can kind of start learning how to trust your intuition more. And, some of the clients that I've had in the past, I seem to attract clients who are right in a giant transition point in their life, and don't know which way to go, because they're not grounded. They don't know how to center themselves. And so, or they have a lot of outward pressure, typically from family and, friends that know what's best for them.
Right.
And just basically kind of teaching them how to, helping them ground, holding space for them, teaching them how to anchor into the earth so that they know what that feels like, and teaching them ways to do that, and anywhere, anytime, how to cleanse it anywhere, anytime, if they're in situations that have thrown them off balance, and then how to help them steer into what's their highest trajectory for their life path. Like, that's pretty much what I focus on, because that's what I've had to learn how to do for myself. That's what I enjoy doing, and it seems to be what I'm pretty good at. So that's so that's what I do. So right now I think I told you my website is Mercury in retrograde. Got excited with it. I tried to update it, and then I like legit disappeared. I can't even log into it. So I've got to rebuild my site, which is actually fine, because I was literally going to completely redo it anyways. So it's, I was like, oh, all right.
Now's a good time, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm still in the process of doing that. But if anyone's interested or has questions or whatnot, just hit me up on Instagram, uniquely Tatum, and just send me a private message or DM, whatever they call it, on IG, and I'll get back to you with details and whatnot. I also do card readings, so if that's something that interests people.
Cool.
That's what's up.
Okay. Good. Awesome. Well, as always, I like talking to you. I love our conversations, and
Me
I'm
too.
grateful that you wanted to come and talk with me, and do this. Believe it or not, there's not a line out the door of people waiting to come and talk to me. So,
Okay,
um,
well, anytime I'm down. I love
yeah,
stuff like this. I love talking to you. So yeah, this
yeah,
is
no, it's
fun for
awesome.
me.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I feel blessed that you gave me your time. So, thank you. And everybody, obviously check Tatum out. She's awesome. She does really, really good, readings and things. I've had some from her before. They're really super good.
Thank you. Thank
So
you.
definitely reach out and get that done. And then, yeah, we need to circle back around and talk about, some more stuff later if you're up for it. So
I'm
I
always
appreciate
down.
you. Yeah,
Plus,
awesome.
see how things are, society is, 2 weeks, everything's gonna be different. So
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. Like, we could be having a totally different conversation in the next couple months. I think
yeah.
after Christmas time is going to be a very, very, very interesting time globally. So
Yeah, I can't even think that far ahead. I'm just like, oh man, it's gonna be a whole new world then.
yeah, it's exciting. It really is. It's
Yeah.
exciting. So it's good. We need some excitement because there was it's tired. A lot of us are tired.
Yes.
But anyway, I appreciate you and thank you everybody for listening. If you have any questions or you want to comment, make sure you do that. And if you have questions or anything for Tatum, I will make sure that she gets them. And I will see you all next time. Thank you.
Thank you.